The word fire is not only something that describes this channel and its content, but it's also something that's really powerful in Lords of the Fallen, because there's a lot of fire-based spells, and there's a decent amount of weapons that deal really good fire damage. I absolutely love Lords of the Fallen, so today I wanted to see if I can beat this incredible game by only leveling Inferno. I start off by picking the Lord class, which you can unlock after getting the Inferno ending. This class is really good for this challenge because it starts off with 22 Inferno. Also, the spells that the Lord class come with are like insane. I'll get more into that in a minute, but for right now we need to make a character. So after a few minutes I made a peak character, Ernie Inferni, and he is an absolute Chad. And just like that, our run begins. So back to the spells I was talking about earlier. The Lord class starts off with the Inferno weapon, which basically imbues your weapon with fire. It comes with a Deer's Endurance, which increases my stamina regeneration speed, and it also comes with one of my favorite Inferno spells in the game, the Infernal Slash, which basically summons a pair of twin axes, and it does a really good amount of Inferno damage, or fire damage. Making my way through the tutorial area, we soon get introduced to Umbral, or the dead, twisted version of the land we're in right now. So you can go into Umbral after you die, so like during a boss fight you can get like a second chance, and also we'll need to be coming here a lot to traverse the land. It's a really cool feature. I like it a lot. And while I'm here I pick up my first Saintly Quintessence, which is an upgrade from my healing cross. I emerged from Umbral to find myself in the abandoned Recopes, which is absolutely beautiful, and then it was time to face the hardest boss in the game, Holy Bulwark Auto. And for just starting out, our damage was looking pretty solid. I swing my ginormous axe a few more times, and then the hardest boss in the game goes down. Phew! After judging the first center of the run, I began to explore this abandoned village, picking up the Mine Owner's Ring, which increases my stamina regeneration speed. And just a few minutes later, it was time to face the real first boss of this run, Pieta, she of the Blessed Renewal. I imbue my weapon with fire, and then the fight begins. So one really good thing about this game is that you can parry, so if you can believe this, I just parried off her moves until I can get a critical attack and just, casually took away half her health, which is just absolutely insane. So Pieta does use some radiant magic in phase 2, but to be honest the fight still really isn't that hard. I'm soon able to break Pieta's posture again, and with one more critical attack, Pieta goes down. With Pieta taken care of, I'm now able to access Skyrest Bridge, which acts as the hub area of this game. And while I'm making myself comfortable, I run into Pieta. Yeah, so apparently she mistook me as the enemy, but now that she has forgiven me so quickly for killing her, we're best friends. I give her one of my Saintly Quintessence so she can upgrade my Aeronex up to +1, and that is exactly how you pronounce it, by the way. I get my first few levels into Inferno, and then I make my way out of Skyrest Bridge and towards Mornstead. On my way, I make sure to talk to this guy. I can't pronounce his name, but I just call him Legend because he's an absolute legend of an NPC, and he's going to be very helpful throughout this run. As I explored Mornstead, I made sure to pick up some small Derelium fragments, which are like regular Titanite shards in Dark Souls 3. I'm probably going to be referencing Dark Souls 3 a lot to like compare items from that game to this game, just to let y'all know. I make my way into Umbral so I can pick up the Skyrest Bridge key. And with that key I'm able to open these doors and access the underground level of Skyrest Bridge. I believe this is supposed to be like a cathedral and prison. So you're not going to believe this, but I lost some footage. I'm sorry about that. But basically, I talked to the tortured prisoner so I can advance her questline, and she was very helpful because I can buy Inferno spells from her, ignore that voice crack, and I also speak to Damaros because she is very helpful in getting the Inferno ending. Then I take out a mini-boss, and it was time to travel to Pilgrim's Perch. While I'm exploring the perch, I pick up the relic of Perpetuation? Man, I don't know, I probably didn't say that right. But this relic increases my maximum health, which for right now is pretty good. Making my way deeper into the perch, I come across this very lovely blacksmith, who very nicely tells me to give her the key to let her out. I don't. As much as I hate this character, I even named this clip Stupid Blacksmith because I just hate her that much. I give her the key so she can upgrade my weapons, and we'll move back to Skyrise Bridge where she can upgrade my weapons even more. I run into Damaros and I buy the Deer's Rage Inferno spell from her. This is a really good spell because it increases all of my damage types for a little bit, and just love that extra damage. I imbue my weapon with fire once again, and then it was time to take on the Mistress of Hounds. So I remember in my first playthrough of this game, I really struggled with this fight. I remember I was looking up tutorials on how to beat her, and I remember I beat her with just running around in circles so these dogs wouldn't get me, and then I would go in for a hit or two and then dip out and run around again until I could get another hit in. But now, since I've played this game for a good bit, this fight is pretty easy, and she's also ridiculously weak to fire. With a few more slashes from my Inferno axes, the Mistress of Hounds goes down. After defeating her, I make my way into the Forsaken Fen, which is an absolute beautiful place. I run into a legend again. This time I pick up a few poison cures and all 10 of his small Duralium fragments. After talking to legend, I run into the next boss of this run, the Congregator of Flesh. Ouch. So like the Mistress of Hounds, this boss for me in my first playthrough was really hard. And I remember again looking up tutorials on how to beat him and stuff like that. And I'm not too sure if this is what I picked up from one of those tutorials or if this is something that I just kind of figured out on my own. But whenever I fight this boss, I usually stick to this leg here because a lot of his attacks won't hit you. And I'm not sure if he's weaker on this leg, but yeah, this is kind of what I attack when I'm fighting this boss. Now this boss is pretty weak to fire, and with one more powerful slash from my axe, this monstrosity goes down. I take a second to get my Inferno level up to 30. I then travel back to Skyrise Bridge where I talk to the tortured prisoner and I buy the Inferno orb from her. This isn't the craziest spell ever or anything, but it was my only ranged option for right now, and I figured why not. I make my way deeper into the Forsaken Fen, eventually coming across the Poison Swamp. While I'm here, I picked up a few more small Duralium fragments, plus another Saintly Quintessence. And after some more exploration, I head back to Skyrise Bridge where I get my Catalyst up to +3. I get my Inferno level up to 35, and then I give Pieta another Saintly Quintessence. After getting some upgrades, I make my way back to the Forsaken Fen where it was time to take on the next boss of this run, the Hushed Saint. Oh my goodness, that damage is crazy. So I remember this being another boss that gave me quite a hard time in my first playthrough. I remember that I was trying to parry all of his attacks, and I wasn't dodging as much as I should have. But now, as you can see, because I've gotten a lot better at this game, and because the Hushed Saint is pretty weak to fire, we're doing a really good amount of damage, and I was fighting him a lot better. Now even though this fight is pretty easy, it was still a lot of fun, and it doesn't take long for the Hushed Saint to go down. Now usually at this point we would cleanse the first beacon, but because I'm going for the Inferno ending, we're going to leave it alone for right now. I make my way into Fitzroy's Gorge where I pick up a few regular Duralium nuggets, which is large Titanite shards in Dark Souls 3. And as I continue to explore, I pick up a cracked rune tablet, so I can give this rune tablet to the blacksmith back at Skyrise Bridge. And at that point I'll be able to socket runes into my weapons, which are basically little buffs like increased scaling or increased elemental damage or just stuff like that. So very helpful stuff. I pick up a few more regular Duralium nuggets, and then it was time to take on another mini boss, the Ruiner. Now this was the first fight where I was a little bit concerned about our damage because he's a fire based enemy, and obviously I'm using fire based equipment. And it wasn't anything crazy, but honestly it wasn't too bad either. With With another sinner judged, I made my way to the Shrine of the Deer where I talked to Damaros. Now it's very important that I talk to her here because this allows me to progress to the Inferno ending. I made my way into Umbral where I pick up another Umbral Eye. This one's very good because it allows me to be immune from all damage for a few seconds after transitioning into Umbral. And then I made my way into Lower Calrath. While I'm here, I pick up my first Umbral Lamp upgrade, and then I pick up the sword that's going to carry me through the majority of this run, the Fallen Lord Sword. Not only does this sword scale purely with Inferno, but it also does a pretty solid amount of fire damage, and it deals a whopping 300 ignite damage. I'm also able to pick up the Lava Burst Inferno spell, which is like the Fireball, but a lot better. I make a quick pit stop back at Skyrest Bridge where I talk to Legend to buy 10 regular Duralium nuggets. And with the newly acquired upgrade materials, I get my Fallen Lord sword up to +5. With my sword upgraded, it was time to take on the next boss, the Spurned Progeny. Hey, he looks a lot like me. I was a little bit worried about her damage just because it was fire versus fire, basically. And while it wasn't super great, it was definitely doable. Soon the bottom part of the arena gets covered in lava, so I take the high ground like Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I'm able to get an opening to throw some fireballs at him, and that's actually pretty solid damage. The Spurned Progeny must have been pretty annoyed at me because he decides to let off a nuke. After getting flashbanged, I reposition and the fight continues. Soon the lava from the bottom of the arena disappears, and with a few more strikes from my sword, this monstrosity goes down. Back at Skyrest Bridge, I'm able to pick up the Magma Surge Inferno spell from the Spurned Progeny's Remembrance. I then continue making my way through Calrath, picking up a chipped rune tablet. And then I enter the Sunless Skein. So I'm gonna be honest, not a whole lot goes down here, and soon it was time to take on the next boss, the Skin Stealer. Now the fight was pretty intense, but a few slashes later, another sinner is judged. With the Skin Stealer taken care of, I decide to stay in Umbral where I take on a trio of Reapers. After judging those sinners, I make my way to Skyrest Bridge where I get my Inferno level to 50. And then I make my way into the Revelation Depths. Now there is a plethora of Duralium fragments down here, and so while I'm here I made sure to grab as much as I could. While I'm here I bump into Winterberry, and I buy the Hysteria pendant from her, which increases my spell power. I'm also able to grab a Duralium chunk, which allows me to get my weapon up to +10. I make a quick pit stop at Skyrest Bridge where I buy 5 large Duralium shards from Legend. Again, he's an absolute legend. And with those extra shards, I'm able to get the Fallen Lord sword up to +8. I then make my way back to the Revelation Depths where it was time to take on the next boss. You know what? I think I'm okay actually. I'm just gonna head out. Ugh. Okay, but for real, it was time to take on the next boss, the Pledged Knight. And we're actually doing a pretty solid amount of damage, which to me was a surprise, because I've only fought this boss like a few times because I wasn't really sure where she was. But the damage we were doing was pretty good, like really good actually. A lot better than the damage I'm usually dealing to her. Now, again, I haven't fought this boss a whole lot, but she has definitely become one of my favorite fights in this game. I don't know, it's just her moveset is just a lot of fun, and she looks cool, and yeah, man, it's a great fight. Oh, that's right, it's a Souls game, there's a Phase 2. Now, Phase 2 is a bit harder than Phase 1, which really isn't a surprise, but she is a lot more aggressive in this phase, and she has a lot more health. Now, unfortunately, she is able to take me out, but I emerge in Umbral and I'm able to Uno reverse my death, and so now she's dead. Take that, you son of a bitch. With the Unbroken Promise defeated, I get my Inferno level to 54, and then I make my way to the Thief with the Chilled Curse. Now, I'm gonna be honest, nothing really happens here. So I'm just gonna fast forward a little bit where I'm talking to the absolute legend known as Legend. Buy some frostbite cures from him, which is gonna be very helpful in just a minute. And then it was time to take on the next boss, the Hollow Crow. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a huge fan of this fight. It is a gimmick fight, and usually I'm down for gimmick fights. I think, like, for example, Yorm the Giant in Dark Souls 3 is a gimmick fight, and I really like him. I don't know, something about this fight is just very, like, bland? I'm not really into it. With the crow taken care of, I make my way to the beacon of this area, and while I'm not going to be cleansing it, there is a chest here which gives me a pretty good amount of Durellium pieces. Back at Skyrise Bridge, I purchased a Pilgrim's Perch key, which is a whopping 18,000 vigor. It used to be 9,000, and now it's 18,000. I love that. Anyway, before heading back to Pilgrim's Perch, I wanted to progress the Tortured Prisoner quest line a little bit, so I make a quick detour and I head over to Upper Calrath. There's only one thing that I need up here right now, that being the Noblewoman attire, because in order to progress this quest, I need to wear the full set and talk to the Tortured Prisoner at the arena where I took on the Spurned Progeny. And by talking to her, I'm now able to purchase the Seismic Slam Inferno spell, which is absolutely insane, and I'm also able to purchase the Cataclysm spell, which is just ridiculous. Like, it's insane how powerful this one is. After buying the new spells, I use the Pilgrim's Perch key and continue to make my way through Mornstead. After exploring a bit more of Pilgrim's Perch, I make it to the Manse of the Hollow Brothers. I take a second to admire the view because this game is absolutely beautiful. While exploring, I pick up the Lucent Sword Ring, which increases my damage when my health is full. Skipping forward a little bit, where I'm exploring this giant castle, I pick up another upgrade chisel for my Umbral lamp. I soon make my way to the Tower of Penance, where it was time to take on another boss, and one of my personal favorites, Tancred, the Master of Castinations. Ooh, okay, that's some pretty solid damage. Something that I failed to recognize is that Tancred also does a lot of damage. So I went into Umbral a lot earlier in the fight than I would have liked, but thankfully, after a few more strikes and a critical hit, we get down to phase 2. I didn't do that. Yeah, you know what? I'm very sorry for disturbing you. I think I'm just gonna head out. Like in most fights, Phase 2 is a lot more challenging than Phase 1, but thankfully, because our spells were stupidly overpowered, I was able to get a critical hit very early into the fight. A few minutes later, I'm able to get another critical hit, and just like that, Tancred goes down. Again, this is one of my favorite fights in the entire game. I absolutely love it. With Tancred defeated, I make my way to the Abbey of the Hollowed Sisters. And it's here in this gore-ridden cathedral where I pick up the Rune of Vadir, which is not only very necessary for the rest of the game, but is also required for the Inferno ending. And with the rune in hand, I'm able to access the Empyrean, where it was time to take on Judge Cleric. Whew, man, that's good damage. In fact, our damage is so stupid we were able to obliterate Phase 1, and soon it was time to take on Phase 2, or the corrupted Judge Cleric. Now I'm not gonna lie, even though we are doing really good damage, the corrupted Judge is really kicking my ass here, and unfortunately she sends me into Umbral. Fortunately, because of one of the Umbral eyes I've found along my journey, I'm immune for a few seconds after transitioning to Umbral, giving me some time to get a few good hits in. And with one final powerful slash from my sword, the Judge Cleric goes down. After defeating Judge Cleric, I head over to Upper Calrath where I pick up the Moth Ring, which increases the amount of vigor I get per kill. And soon it was time to take on the Light Reaper. Now I was a little bit worried about this fight, not only because he is super aggressive, but I don't really have a lot of health, and he hits really hard. Not only that, but he's a fire-based boss, and I'm obviously using fire-based weapons, so I wasn't really sure how good the damage was going to be. So I knew that this was going to be a fun, yet very intense fight. The bouncy fireball that I picked up from Judge Cleric's Remembrance didn't really do a lot of damage, and we weren't really doing a lot of damage with our sword either. So, oh boy. About halfway through the fight, the Light Reaper sent me into Umbral, and this is when I started to get a little bit concerned that I wasn't going to beat him on the first try, but somehow I was able to get off a very risky heavy attack, and the critical hit did a pretty solid amount of damage. And with one more bonk from my Inferno hammer, the Light Reaper goes down, surprisingly, on the first try. I return to Skywrath's Bridge where I pick up the Severing Blades Inferno spell from the Light Reaper's Remembrance. I get my Inferno level up to 72. I then head back to Upper Calrath where I use the Rune of Vadir to get rid of all the debris that was blocking this door. And with that door open, it wasn't long until I reached Brammis Castle. After a little bit of exploring, I come across a vestige where I get my Inferno level up to 76. I then make my way into Brammis Castle, and man, it's beautiful in here. As I explored more of the castle, I come across this bedroom that looks like it belonged to the king, and while I'm here I pick up a piece of swaddling cloth for the tortured prisoner. I give the swaddling cloth to the tortured prisoner, and then it was time to take on the next boss, the Sundered Monarch. Now it was a pretty intense fight, but with one more use of the Calamity spell, King Brahmas goes down. With the king defeated, the tortured prisoner meets us at the top of the throne, and by talking to her, she reveals herself as Queen Sophicia of Mornstead, and after giving us a few final words of advice, we say farewell. I then give the Rune of Adir to none other than Adir, who empowers it and makes it the empowered Rune of Adir. He then tells me to cleanse all the blasphemous magic that keeps him prisoner by using the Rune of Adir. Basically, this means I have to go to all the beacons and use the empowered Rune of Adir on them, so I'll spend a few minutes traveling around the map doing just that. The final beacon was at the Empyrean, and after using the Rune of Adir on it, I talked to Judge Cleric and used the Rune of Adir to enter her mind. So I'm going to give you guys my kind of take on what's happening here. I think what's going on here is we went to the past where Judge Cleric was a lot younger, and we used the Rune of Adir to corrupt her so that she never becomes a hollowed sentinel and she never traps Adir in prison, like, to begin with. I don't know if that made sense, but that's kind of how I think of what's going on here. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah. It's a very unique ending. I like it a lot. After using the Rune of Adir one final time, we warp back to reality where Adir has taken over the form of Judge Cleric, and he makes me his first Rogar Lord, which marks the end of Ernie and Fernie's adventure. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I know I'm yapping over some pretty important text, but I absolutely love this game, and I'm just so happy that I'm making videos on it. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and there's definitely going to be a lot more Lords of the Fallen videos to come, so hopefully you guys are looking forward to that. Thank you so much for watching. This was an absolute blast. I hope you guys have a great day, a great night, a great morning, a great afternoon, a great whenever you're watching this, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you.